The Galactic Council had seen every species' greatest weapon. The Vortak brought plasma cannons that could melt moons. The Zilani wielded quantum disruptors that unraveled matter at the atomic level. The ancient Kree displayed psionic amplifiers that could crush minds across star systems. When humanity requested admission to the Council, every species expected another display of devastating firepower. They prepared their shields, reinforced their stations, and readied emergency protocols. Instead, 3 humans walked into the Grand Chamber carrying nothing but briefcases. The Council laughed. Some species found it amusing. Others considered it insulting. A few whispered it was suicide. They demanded an explanation. Where are your weapons? How do you expect to earn respect among the stars without showing your strength? The lead human, a woman with tired eyes and steady hands, smiled. You asked us to demonstrate why you should fear humanity's military might. You never asked us to bring weapons. She opened her briefcase. What happened next would haunt the nightmares of every council member for generations to come. They learned that day why humans are the only species in the galaxy that wages war not with tools of destruction, but with something far more terrifying. They wage war with ideas. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the massive crystalline doors of the Galactic Council chambers, her simple black briefcase weighing heavier in her hand than any weapon she'd ever carried. Behind her, Dr. James Chen adjusted his glasses nervously while Commander Sarah Mitchell maintained the rigid posture that had served her through 20 years of military service. The doors dissolved into particles of light, revealing the vast amphitheater beyond. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the tiered seats that spiraled upward into shadows. Each species had earned their place here through displays of raw power that could crack planets or extinguish stars. Elena's heels clicked against the polished floor as she led her small team toward the center of the chamber. The sound echoed in the sudden silence that had fallen over the assembly. She could feel the weight of alien gazes upon them, could sense the mixture of confusion and barely contained laughter rippling through the crowd. At the center of the chamber sat the High Council's inner circle. The massive Vortak Prime Warchief Thurak loomed in his crystalline throne, his 4 arms crossed over a chest that could house a small spacecraft. To his right, the ethereal Zilani High Mystic Zarathel floated in a sphere of crackling energy. The ancient Kree Overmind spoke through its mechanical avatar, red sensors studying the humans with cold calculation. Humans, Thurak's voice boomed across the chamber, the translator's mechanical tone failing to soften the disdain in his words. You come before this council seeking membership among the galaxy's great civilizations. Yet you carry no weapons. You display no power. You show us nothing but your weakness. A wave of chittering laughter arose from the insectoid hive speakers in the upper galleries. The slug-like gastropod trade princes gurgled their amusement from their mucus-filled observation tanks. Even the normally stoic silicon-based collective flickered their crystalline bodies in what passed for mirth among their kind. Elena remained perfectly still. She had expected this reception. Earth's intelligence networks had provided detailed reports on every council admission ceremony for the past 3 centuries. Every species that gained membership had done so by demonstrating their capacity for destruction on a scale that terrified their neighbors into respect. You dare waste our time with this pathetic display? The Zilani High Mystic's telepathic voice whispered directly into their minds, carrying undertones of psychic pressure that would have driven most beings to their knees. Other species bring weapons that can shatter worlds. You bring office supplies. Dr. Chen's hand trembled slightly as he gripped his own briefcase tighter. Elena noticed the movement and felt a wave of protective anger surge through her chest. James was brilliant, perhaps the most brilliant strategic analyst humanity had ever produced, but he was not built for this kind of psychological warfare. Commander Mitchell stepped forward slightly, her movement so subtle that only Elena noticed. Sarah's military training was showing through her diplomat's facade. Elena placed a gentle hand on her arm, and the commander settled back into position. We understand your confusion, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. Every species here earned their seat by displaying their most devastating weapons. You've seen plasma cannons that can melt continents. You've witnessed quantum disruptors that can unravel the very fabric of spacetime. You've cowered before psionic amplifiers that can drive entire populations to madness. The word coward sent a ripple of angry muttering through the assembly. Several species shifted restlessly in their seats, bioluminescent threat displays flickering to life among the more primitive delegations. Thurak leaned forward in his throne, the crystalline structure groaning under his weight. You mock us, human. But you have brought nothing. Your species is weak. Your technology is primitive. Your weapons are laughable toys compared to the might gathered in this chamber. Elena smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. It was the same smile she had worn when delivering ultimatums to warlords and dictators across the Earth's former colonies. It was the smile that preceded the fall of governments and the reshaping of star systems. You're absolutely right, she said. Our weapons are primitive. Our technology is centuries behind yours. Our ships can barely manage faster than light travel while yours can fold space itself. She opened her briefcase. The chamber fell silent. Every being leaned forward, expecting to see some hidden technological marvel, some secret weapon that would explain humanity's confidence. Instead, Elena removed a simple tablet computer and a stack of printed documents. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Then, the laughter began again, louder this time. Several of the younger species representatives pointed openly at the humans, their universal translators struggling to convey the nuances of intergalactic mockery. A toy computer. Thurak roared. Paper documents. This is what humanity brings to challenge the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. Elena's smile widened. Actually, yes. You see, you all made the same mistake. You assumed that the most dangerous weapon in the universe had to be something that could destroy matter or energy or space itself. She activated the tablet, and holographic displays materialized above the device. Star charts appeared, showing detailed maps of every major civilization's territory, military installations, and trade routes. Economic data streamed past in columns of numbers that made several of the trade-focused species lean forward with sudden interest. The thing is, Elena continued, we studied you. All of you. For 50 years, while you were perfecting your planet killers and reality warpers, we were doing something far more dangerous. We were learning. Dr. Chen stepped forward, his nervousness evaporating as he entered his element. The Vortak hegemony, he said, his voice gaining strength. 17 systems, population of 43 billion. Your entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming firepower and direct assault. Very effective against species that fight the same way. Thurak's massive head swiveled toward the small human, red eyes narrowing. Your point, insect? Your supply lines, Chen continued, pulling out his own tablet. They're completely dependent on 3 central depot worlds. Worlds that have no meaningful defensive capabilities because you've never needed to defend them. Your strategy is always offensive. You've never considered what happens when someone doesn't want to fight you directly. A new hologram appeared, showing the Vortak trade networks in devastating detail. Every supply route, every manufacturing center, every fuel depot blazed in the air above their heads. But, more troubling were the red markers that began appearing on the display, indicating critical vulnerabilities that even the Vortak military command hadn't fully mapped. The Zalani Federation, Commander Mitchell took over, her military bearing commanding attention even from beings 10 times her size. Masters of psionic warfare. Your mind weapons can indeed drive populations to madness. Impressive. Terrifying, even. The High Mystic Zarathel's energy sphere pulsed with increased activity. You dare analyze the infinite consciousness? Your primitive minds cannot comprehend the depths of our power. Our primitive minds have been studying psionic theory for exactly 47 years, 3 months, and 16 days, Mitchell replied. Since the moment we detected your first probe ship in our outer system. Do you know what we discovered? Another hologram blazed to life. This one showed the internal structure of Zalani society, the hierarchical layers of psychic castes that formed their civilization. But, more disturbing were the psychological profiles, the detailed analyses of individual Zilani leaders and their mental vulnerabilities. Psionics require mental discipline, Mitchell continued. Perfect focus. Absolute certainty. But we humans have something you don't. Something that makes us immune to your greatest weapons and capable of turning them against you. Impossible, Zarathel whispered, but Elena noticed the mystic's energy sphere had begun to flicker with uncertainty. We doubt, Elena said simply. Every human doubts. We question everything, including ourselves. Do you know what happens when a telepathic species tries to dominate minds that fundamentally question their own thoughts? When you attempt to control beings who are already arguing with themselves? The silence in the chamber had taken on a different quality. The laughter had died away, replaced by an attention so focused it was almost tangible. Elena turned to address the entire assembly. You've all been fighting the same war for millennia. The war of who has the biggest gun, the most devastating weapon, the most terrifying display of raw power. But you've forgotten something important. She gestured to the holographic displays still floating in the air around them. Wars aren't won with weapons. They're won with logistics. With economics. With understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. With exploiting weaknesses they didn't even know they had. Dr. Chen activated another sequence, and the displays began showing economic projections, social stability analyses, and psychological warfare scenarios. Every major civilization in the galaxy was represented, their strengths catalogued and their fatal flaws exposed with surgical precision. The Kree Collective, Chen said, his voice now carrying the confidence of a professor delivering a lecture. Your hive mind consciousness makes you incredibly efficient and virtually immune to individual corruption or doubt. But it also makes you catastrophically vulnerable to systemic infiltration. The Kree Overmind's mechanical avatar turned its sensors toward the human. Clarify this statement. Information warfare, Chen replied. You process data collectively, which means false information introduced at the right node propagates through your entire civilization like a virus. We've already identified 17 critical decision-making nodes that, if fed carefully crafted misinformation, would cause your entire society to make decisions that serve our interests rather than yours. A sound like grinding metal emanated from the Kree delegation. Other species were beginning to shift uncomfortably in their seats as they realized the implications of what they were hearing. Elena raised her voice to address the growing murmur of conversation. You want to know why humanity deserves a seat on this council? It's not because we can destroy you. Any fool with enough antimatter can destroy things. We deserve a seat because we can defeat you without firing a single shot. She gestured to Commander Mitchell, who activated the final holographic display. This one showed something that made even the most confident species representatives lean back in alarm. It was a complete strategic analysis of a war between humanity and the entire Galactic Council. Not a hypothetical war, but a detailed operational plan with specific timelines, resource allocation charts, and probability matrices. The projection showed humanity emerging victorious not through superior firepower, but through a complex web of economic manipulation, psychological warfare, strategic alliance building, and systematic exploitation of each species' societal weaknesses. This is what humans do, Elena said quietly, but her voice carried to every corner of the vast chamber. While you were building better guns, we were building better minds. While you were perfecting your ability to destroy, we were perfecting our ability to understand. And understanding, ladies and gentlemen of the Council, is the most dangerous weapon in the universe. The chamber erupted into chaos as species representatives began arguing among themselves, panic spreading through the assembly like wildfire. Elena watched the pandemonium with the satisfied expression of a teacher whose students had finally grasped a particularly difficult lesson. She closed her briefcase and waited for order to be restored. After all, the real demonstration was just beginning. The chaos in the council chambers took nearly an hour to subside. Elena watched as species that had been allies for centuries began eyeing each other with suspicion, each wondering what vulnerabilities their neighbors might have identified in their own civilizations. The careful balance of power that had maintained galactic peace for millennia was cracking before her eyes, and she hadn't even fired a shot. When Thurrock finally restored order by threatening to throw several smaller species representatives into space, the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by a tension so thick Elena could taste it. "You speak of theoretical victories," the Vorthak warchief growled, his four massive arms crossed defensively over his chest. "Paper projections mean nothing in real combat. Show us proof that your soft words can stand against plasma and steel." Elena nodded to Dr. Chen, who pulled out a sealed communication device from his briefcase. "Very well. Computer, establish connection with Admiral Hayes, Pacific Fleet Command." A hologram materialized above the device, showing the weathered face of a human military officer. Behind him, Elena could see the bridge of a warship, with crew members moving efficiently at their stations. "Admiral Hayes," Elena said formally. "Please provide the Council with a status report on Operation Mirror's Edge." The Admiral's expression was grim. "Mission accomplished, Ambassador. The Rigel Concordat has agreed to immediate ceasefire negotiations with the hegemony. Their entire Third Fleet has been recalled to defend their core systems." A shocked gasp rippled through the Vorthak delegation. The Rigel Concordat had been fighting a brutal war against the Vorthak hegemony for over 6 months, with neither side able to gain decisive advantage. The war had cost millions of lives and threatened to spread to neighboring systems. Thurrock leaned forward, his red eyes blazing. "Impossible. The Rigelians would never negotiate. They swore blood oaths to fight until our species was extinct." Elena smiled. "Dr. Chen, would you care to explain what Operation Mirror's Edge accomplished?" Chen stepped forward, his earlier nervousness completely gone. The Rigel Concordat's entire military strategy was based on their conviction that the Vorthak were planning to use biological weapons against civilian populations. This belief was supported by intelligence they had gathered from several captured hegemony officers. "False intelligence," Commander Mitchell added smoothly. "Intelligence that we provided through carefully crafted double agents. Rigelian interrogation techniques are quite effective against most species, but they rely on detecting biological stress responses that can be artificially induced." Thurrock's massive form went rigid. "You manipulated our enemies. Made them believe lies about our intentions." "Not lies," Elena corrected. "Possibilities. We simply allowed them to discover evidence of contingency plans that your military had never actually implemented but had certainly considered. Every military considers biological warfare options. We just made sure the Rigelians found documentation of your considerations at exactly the moment their fear would be greatest." Dr. Chen activated another display, showing a complex timeline of carefully orchestrated intelligence operations. "The beauty of it was that we never actually lied to anyone. We simply made sure that true information was discovered at precisely the wrong time, in precisely the wrong context, leading to perfectly logical but completely incorrect conclusions." The council chamber had fallen silent again, but this time the silence was heavy with fear rather than anticipation. "The Rigel Concordat recalled their fleets," Commander Mitchell continued, "because they believed the Vorthak were about to deploy planet killers against their home systems. They're now desperately trying to protect civilians who were never actually in danger. Meanwhile, the hegemony is confused by their enemy's sudden retreat and is consolidating forces to press what they believe is a strategic advantage." "But here's the elegant part," Elena said, walking slowly around the central platform as she spoke. "Neither side realizes that their new strategic positions are exactly what we wanted. The Rigelians have pulled their fleets back to defensive positions around resource-rich systems that we've been trying to access for mining rights. The Vorthak have advanced into territory that's actually worthless but appears strategically valuable." Thurrock rose from his throne, his massive frame towering over the humans. "You started a war to serve your economic interests?" "No," Elena replied calmly. "We ended a war to serve galactic stability. The Rigel-Vorthak conflict was destabilizing an entire sector and threatening to draw on 6 other civilizations. But both sides were too proud to negotiate directly. So we gave them a reason to step back without losing face." Admiral Hayes's voice came from the communication device. Ambassador, I'm receiving word that both sides are requesting human mediation for the peace talks. They've specifically asked for Earth diplomatic teams to oversee the negotiations. Elena nodded. Thank you, Admiral. That will be all. The hologram faded, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. You see, Elena said, addressing the entire assembly, this is what humans do. We don't conquer territory through military might. We don't subjugate populations through superior firepower. We solve problems. We create stability. We build networks of mutual benefit that serve everyone's interests. The High Mystic Zarathel's energy sphere pulsed with agitation. You manipulated entire civilizations like pawns on a game board. This is not diplomacy. This is psychological warfare on a galactic scale. Yes, Elena agreed simply. It is. And it worked. Millions of beings are alive today who would have died if that war had continued. Two civilizations that were bankrupting themselves on military expenditure can now redirect those resources toward growth and development. An entire sector that was on the brink of chaos is now stabilizing. Dr. Chen stepped forward again. The Zalani Federation understands this principle better than most. Your entire society is built on the concept of collective consciousness serving the greater good. You use your psychic abilities to maintain social harmony and prevent conflict before it begins. We simply apply the same principle on a larger scale. The difference, Commander Mitchell added, is that you use mind control. We use mind understanding. You force compliance. We engineer cooperation. Elena gestured to the displays still floating around them. Every projection you've seen today represents actual intelligence gathering operations that our species has been conducting for decades. We know more about your civilizations than many of your own leaders do. We understand your decision-making processes, your cultural pressure points, your economic vulnerabilities, and your psychological blind spots. A new voice spoke from the shadows of the upper galleries. The speaker was a member of the ancient ethereal collective, being so old and advanced that they rarely participated in council debates. Human ambassador, the ethereal's voice was like whispers of cosmic wind. You speak of understanding and cooperation, yet you demonstrate an intelligence network that rivals our own. How do we know you will not use this knowledge against us? Elena had been waiting for this question. It was the crucial moment that would determine whether humanity would be seen as a potential ally or an existential threat. Because, she said, we need you to succeed. She activated her tablet one final time, and a new set of displays materialized. These showed something completely different from the previous projections. Instead of military weaknesses and strategic vulnerabilities, they revealed a comprehensive analysis of humanity's own limitations. This is the real reason we've been studying you so carefully, Elena explained. We're not planning to conquer you. We're planning to survive alongside you. And we can't do that without your help. The displays showed Earth's resource constraints, humanity's technological limitations, and the numerous threats facing human civilization that could only be addressed through cooperation with other species. The truth is, Dr. Chen said, humanity is facing several extinction-level challenges that we cannot solve alone. Climate instability on our colony worlds. Resource depletion in our manufacturing systems. Genetic bottlenecks in our population that will require careful management to avoid. We need galactic-scale cooperation to address these problems. Commander Mitchell nodded. Our military capabilities are impressive for strategic planning and intelligence operations, but utterly inadequate for defending against the real threats in this galaxy. The dark matter entities in the void between galactic arms. The quantum storms that can erase entire star systems from existence. The entropy machines left behind by the precursor civilizations. Elena looked directly at each member of the High Council as she spoke. We studied your weaknesses not to exploit them, but to understand how to help you overcome them. Because if any of your civilizations collapse, it creates instabilities that threaten everyone, including us. A murmur of conversation began spreading through the chamber, but this time the tone was thoughtful rather than hostile. The Vortak hegemony's supply line vulnerabilities, Elena continued, could be eliminated through trade agreements with the Gastropod Commerce Guild and infrastructure development loans from the Silicon Collective. The Zilani Federation's susceptibility to information warfare could be countered by cross-training programs with human psychological warfare specialists. Dr. Chen smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Every weakness we've identified comes with a recommended solution that benefits both the affected species and the galactic community as a whole. We're not offering membership to the Council because we can destroy you. We're offering membership because we can help you become stronger than you've ever been before. The council chamber erupted again, but this time the chaos was different. Instead of fear and hostility, Elena could hear the excited buzz of possibility. Species representatives were leaning toward each other, beginning to discuss the implications of what they had heard. Elena closed her briefcase and waited. She had shown them humanity's greatest weapon, not the ability to destroy, but the ability to build. The ability to see connections and possibilities that others missed. The ability to solve problems that seemed impossible through careful analysis and strategic thinking. Now came the hardest part. They had to convince the galaxy's greatest civilizations to trust them with the power that understanding represents. And Elena knew that trust, once gained, would be humanity's greatest responsibility. The debate lasted 18 hours. Elena watched from the center platform as the greatest civilizations in the galaxy struggled with a concept that challenged their fundamental understanding of power. Species that had built their entire identities around military might were being forced to consider whether intelligence and cooperation might be more valuable than firepower and conquest. The ethereal collective had withdrawn into private communion, their whispered discussions conducted in frequencies beyond normal hearing range. The silicon-based collective's crystalline forms flickered through rapid color changes as they processed terabytes of strategic data. Even the notoriously impatient insectoid hive speakers had fallen silent, their compound eyes tracking every word spoken by the council members. During a brief recess, Dr. Chen approached Elena with obvious concern etched across his features. "Ambassador, the risk calculations are becoming problematic. If they reject our application, we've essentially given them a complete intelligence briefing on our capabilities and limitations." Elena nodded grimly. "I know, James. But, if we hadn't shown them everything, they would have discovered it eventually anyway. At least this way, we control the narrative." Commander Mitchell joined them, her expression unreadable. "Ma'am, I'm receiving communications from the Pacific Fleet. Admiral Hayes reports that 17 different species have begun deep space reconnaissance sweeps of our outer colonies. They're not hostile yet, but they're clearly trying to verify our claims." "Let them look," Elena replied. "In fact, Dr. Chen, please transmit our complete colony defense specifications to the Council's intelligence committees. If they're going to evaluate us, they should have accurate information." Chen's eyes widened. "Ambassador, that's unprecedented. No species has ever voluntarily revealed their complete defensive capabilities to the Council. No species has ever applied for membership the way we have," Elena pointed out. "Traditional approaches clearly aren't working for us." When the session resumed, it was High Mystic Zarathel who spoke first. The Zilani's energy sphere had stabilized, suggesting that her species had reached some form of internal consensus. Human delegation, her telepathic voice carried new undertones of respect mixed with caution. "The Zilani Federation acknowledges the unprecedented nature of your presentation. However, we must address a fundamental concern. Your methods, while effective, represent a form of warfare that operates outside all established conventions. How can we trust beings who wage war through deception and manipulation?" Elena had anticipated this challenge. She stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back in a posture of formal address. "High Mystic, you raised the most important question of this entire proceeding. Trust is indeed the core issue here. But, I would ask you to consider which is more trustworthy, a species that openly demonstrates its capacity to manipulate others, or a species that possesses such capabilities but conceals them?" She gestured to the displays still floating in the chamber's center. "Every intelligence operation we've described to you was conducted with surgical precision to minimize harm and maximize benefit for all parties involved. We could have used the same information to devastating effect, but we chose not to. That choice is what defines us. Dr. Chen activated a new set of projections, these showing detailed analyses of conflicts that humanity had chosen not to become involved in despite having the capability to influence their outcomes. The Centauri trade wars, he explained. 18 months ago, 3 major commercial civilizations began a destructive economic conflict over mining rights in the Centauri system. Human intelligence services identified 17 different intervention points where we could have manipulated the situation to our advantage. We chose not to act because the eventual resolution, while costly, ultimately strengthened regional stability. Commander Mitchell added another example. The Proxima Rebellion. A terrorist organization was planning to use stolen antimatter weapons against civilian targets across 4 different systems. We possessed intelligence that could have prevented their attacks, but sharing it would have revealed our intelligence networks to hostile elements. Instead, we found ways to provide the same information through channels that appeared to be routine security sweeps by local authorities. Elena watched the council members' reactions carefully. The concept of choosing restraint when holding overwhelming advantage was foreign to most species' military thinking. "This is our proposal," Elena said, addressing the entire assembly. "Humanity requests membership in the Galactic Council not as conquerors or supplicants, but as partners. We offer our analytical capabilities, our intelligence networks, and our strategic planning expertise in service of galactic stability and prosperity." Thurek, who had remained silent for hours, finally rose from his throne. "Human Elena," his voice carried a grudging respect that had not been present before. "Your species fights like the legendary shadow hunters of the ancient texts. They were warriors who could defeat armies without drawing blood, who could conquer worlds without setting foot on them. The histories say they vanished because their own power frightened them." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had not expected the Vorthack to possess historical knowledge of such sophisticated warfare concepts. "Warchief," she replied carefully, "we are not interested in conquest. We are interested in survival. Not just our own survival, but the survival of this entire galactic community. The threats facing all of us are too great for any single species to address alone." She activated her tablet one final time, and the displays changed to show something that made every being in the chamber fall silent. It was a comprehensive threat assessment of dangers facing the galaxy itself. The dark matter entities that had been detected at the galactic rim. The spreading zones of quantum instability that were making entire sectors uninhabitable. The slowly awakening artificial intelligences left behind by the vanished precursor civilizations. "These are the real enemies," Elena said quietly. "Not each other. These are the challenges that will determine whether organic life survives in this galaxy for another 1,000,000 years or whether we all become extinct within the next 1,000. Dr. Chen stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Our projections indicate that no single civilization, no matter how powerful, can address these threats alone. The dark matter entities require coordination between species with different sensory capabilities. The quantum instabilities need to be countered with technologies that no single species possesses. The precursor machines can only be safely studied by teams that include representatives from multiple evolutionary paths." Commander Mitchell nodded. "Military strength alone is insufficient. Economic power alone is insufficient. Even perfect cooperation among existing council members is insufficient. What's required is a new form of organization that transcends traditional species boundaries." Elena looked directly at each council member as she delivered her final argument. "Humanity is not asking to join the Galactic Council as it currently exists. We are proposing to help transform it into something capable of addressing existential threats that dwarf any conflict between our individual civilizations." The ethereal collective's representative finally spoke, their ancient voice carrying harmonics that resonated through the chamber's crystal structures. "Young species, you speak of transformation as though it is a simple matter. The Council has maintained its current form for over 2,000 years. The balance of power among its members has prevented galactic war for longer than most civilizations have existed." "Honored Ancient," Elena replied with deep respect, "that balance served its purpose brilliantly. But, the circumstances that made it necessary are changing. The galaxy itself is changing. If we cannot adapt to meet new challenges, then, all our achievements, all our civilizations, all our histories will become irrelevant. She gestured to the threat assessments floating above them. These dangers do not care about our political boundaries or our species rivalries. They threaten every form of organic and synthetic life equally. We can either face them together as an integrated galactic community, or we can face them separately and, almost certainly, fail. The chamber fell into the deepest silence Elena had yet experienced. She could feel the weight of decisions settling over the assembled representatives like a physical presence. Finally, the Kree Overmind spoke through its mechanical avatar. Humanity presents a logical argument. However, logic alone is insufficient basis for such fundamental changes. We require demonstration of practical benefit. Elena smiled. Of course. Dr. Chen? Chen activated a communication device, and Admiral Hayes's image appeared again. Admiral, please provide the Council with an update on Operation Synthesis. The Admiral's expression was triumphant. Ambassador, I'm pleased to report complete success. The Joint Research Station is operational, and preliminary results exceed all projections. Thurok leaned forward sharply. What research station? Elena's smile widened. While we've been discussing theoretical possibilities, our respective governments have been implementing practical cooperation. Over the past 6 months, human analysts worked with Vorthack engineers, Zilani psychicists, and Silicon Collective quantum specialists to construct a joint research facility designed to study quantum stability phenomena. The displays changed to show a massive space station unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its design incorporated architectural elements from every major civilization, creating a structure that was both beautiful and functionally superior to anything any single species could have built alone. The station's initial research focus, Dr. Chen explained, is developing countermeasures for quantum instabilities. The preliminary results suggest that we can not only prevent the spread of existing instability zones, but actually reverse the damage in affected regions. Commander Mitchell added, more importantly, the success of this joint operation has demonstrated that cross-species cooperation can achieve results that would be impossible through traditional diplomatic channels. Elena watched as the implications settled over the council chamber. They had not just presented a proposal for human membership. They had demonstrated that the future of galactic civilization depended on the kind of cooperation that humanity specialized in facilitating. The choice before you is simple, Elena said. You can maintain the traditional approach of balancing power through displays of strength, or you can embrace a new approach of building power through strategic cooperation. Either way, humanity will continue to exist in this galaxy. The question is whether we do so as members of an evolving council that addresses real threats, or as an independent species that watches ancient institutions fail to adapt to changing circumstances. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than Elena had hoped but decisive enough to matter. Humanity was granted membership in the Galactic Council by a margin of 67%, with the understanding that their role would be fundamentally different from any previous member species. As Elena packed her briefcase for the final time, she reflected on the irony that humanity's greatest weapon had always been their greatest vulnerability, the ability to see things differently, to question assumptions, to imagine possibilities that others could not conceive. They had come unarmed to face the greatest military powers in the galaxy. They had won not through strength, but through understanding. And, in doing so, they had changed not just their own destiny, but the destiny of every civilization among the stars. The real work was just beginning.